right, welcome back everybody. From NROC is where this live broadcast is coming from, the National Results Operations Centre in Pretoria. It's wonderful having you with us here on this voting. It's an absolutely incredibly electric atmosphere that's taking place here as the results start coming in, and the picture is just getting clearer and clearer, even though it's still early days. It certainly is still early days, but the predictions that are coming through from the CSIR are very, very interesting, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. A couple of predictions that the CSIR have processed. They start doing that after 10% of the voting districts have been declared. We're starting at almost 15% of the voting districts. Now, let me just introduce again my analysts to you. I've got Professor Kwandiwe Kondlo, who is from the University of Johannesburg, and Professor Susan Booysen from Wits University. Thanks so much again for being with us here on the program. All right, so we are sitting here at a point where the CSIR are predicting. They've handed them to you, which is quite interesting. So let's talk national results. First, we'll put up on the screen what the national picture looks like, and then what the CSIR are predicting. Susan, talk us through this. Here are the national results.
Yes.
What are you making of it?
Now, obviously, those are small proportions of overall counted. The CSIR, in their prediction models, works with clusters of South Africans behaving typically when it comes to voting. And then they can start modeling results. And once they get over 10% of their voting districts declared, they get devastatingly accurate. So we have good reason to imagine that what we have now in terms of their projections can be pretty accurate.
Wow.
And then, yes, and it's actually, and projections then actually means they anticipate what the full counts will be beyond what we see on the board there.
Okay,
and
so your prediction for the national vote, not your prediction, the CSIR's prediction for the national vote, what does it look like? What is their picture telling us?
On the national one, they say the ANC at this stage, her projections comes out at 63%, which of course will be 3% down for the ANC on his previous performance. Not a bad performance, but certainly down. And the DA on 22%,
wow,
which means that is seriously up by about 5% from the national level performance in 2009, although marginally lower than the local government elections of 2011.
Yeah.
But we should compare apples with apples national. That is an improvement for the DA, and very interesting, the new kid, EFF,
yes,
not on a magnificent score, but most certainly the third biggest party on around 4%, just over 4%, towards 4.5% at this stage, equating to at least 6 MPs in Parliament. And then IFP and NFP jointly, they are the next two parties, coming on 2.3 and on 1.6% respectively of the national vote. Together they are still marginally smaller than what the EFF was on 4.5% in the 2009 elections. And after that, UDM comes in, the Freedom Front comes in, both of them around 1%. And then the parties go down and down. After UDM, COPE, ACDP, African Independent Congress, Al-Jamaa, and Ahang are currently on these projections of the CSIR sitting just below the level of 0.25% that is required to get one MP in Parliament.
Okay.
That means at this stage, Mampela is not quite in Parliament yet.
But something might change.
She has got the best chance of those just below the 0.25 cutoff line to get in. If there's what they call that residual vote after the other seats have been allocated, she will get into Parliament.
She might just get that seat in Parliament.
Go over that
Okay, so there you go. ANC 63.4%, DA 22%, and the EFF 4.4%, according to the CSIR predictions at this point. What are you thinking, Prof? I mean, what is this? Did this surprise you to hear these predictions, or is this very much so what you were expecting?
It's actually very interesting, because I think it was 6 months before the elections that I actually argued that the ANC will sit at 63%.
So you didn't think that they would get that 63%?
I said they will sit at 63%.
Oh, you said that.
Yes.
I beg your pardon. You said that they would get 63%. So that's your prediction as well.
Yes, and I actually said I would be very shocked and very suspicious if they get a 2/3 majority.
Okay.
Given the dynamics within the party itself, and also given the EFF phenomenon. and also a growing democratic alliance, a very dissatisfied citizenry. Yeah, so I never expected the ANC to go any further than 63%.
But some were expecting them to break past that 60 and go down into the 50s. I mean, that's what you heard some opposition parties saying. Was that a little bit too bold of parties to say?
Yes, it was, because that's not the way ANC voters vote. They look at the bigger picture, performance, liberation, Mandela, and do not look at all the other scandals and problems, although they do recognize that they exist.
Yeah.
And some of the opinion polls were going below 60%, but those are the ones that didn't take into account whether those people responding in the surveys were actually registered and whether they had intended voting. So once the opinion polls started taking that into account, they got much more to this current level that we're seeing here.
All right, so let's just remind you, these are all predictions at this point. It's not an SABC prediction, it's not an IEC prediction, it is a CSIR prediction that we are talking about now. The ANC at the final result tally is what they are saying. We'll get 63.4%, the DA 22%, and the EFF 4.4%. Before we take this break, I just want to ask you, how accurate are the CSIR in comparison to previous elections? When they predict, the final result look like this almost?
Very, very much so. I have worked with them for a few elections now. I worked very closely with them last 2 elections.
Yeah.
And once they get towards that 10, 12% of voting districts declared, they get devastatingly accurate.
Wow.
On new parties, they sometimes seem to be a little off because there's no previous election result to compare them with. In the last election, they were very upset that they were 1% out on the COPE.
Can you believe it? So that was
that was pretty much right on. And on EFF now at 4%, they really do not expect you to go much further than that.
All right. Are we going to take a break here? When we return, we'll take a look at a breakdown of the provincial vote, because as you do know, you do get 2 ballots. You get the national and the provincial ballot, and we've been talking about the national ballot that the CSIR are predicting, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that provincial vote. Kwandiwe Kondlo, Professor from UJ, thank you for joining us. I know Professor Susan Booysen, you're going to stay with us for a little bit longer.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a break. See you in a short while.